The same thing that killed his father also killed John Ritter. 30 years had passed since the genetic time bomb detonated. On his last day, everyone saw the indications, but nobody understood what they meant. Even the emergency room doctors were mistaken about it. When he passed away, dozens of people were present. Others documented their observations. His final statements to Amy Beck were recorded during a phone conversation. The autopsy revealed something so startling that it permanently altered how physicians handle chest discomfort. The $14 million agreement illustrates the actual events of that day. On September 17, 1948, he was born in Burbank, California. He would pass away in Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, the same hospital where he was born, for 54 years. His mother, Dorothy Fay, was a well-known figure in vintage westerns, while his father, Tex Ritter, was a well-known cowboy singer. From the beginning, John was surrounded by cameras, lights, and celebrity. However, there were dark aspects to that radiance. His life began wealthy in Hollywood, but before he gained notoriety, it took several negative turns. When John was a child, he went through one of those difficult periods. Something struck him in the right eye through the window while he and his pals were in a car. It could have been a metal crack. It was more than a simple scrape. His retina and eye were irreparably damaged. He lost the majority of his vision in that eye, and the lens remained crooked for the remainder of his life. After being injured, he felt horrible about himself, which affected his performance on stage. He discovered how to be in the now and experience things while losing some of his vision. Although he didn't talk much about it, fans were able to see the shift in his eyes in close-up photos. It's amusing that despite the fact that both of his parents were actors, John wasn't encouraged to pursue acting. His father actually advised him against entering the entertainment industry. After witnessing the business's ups and downs, Tex Ritter advised John to go for a secure career in fields like politics or law. His mom was concerned, too. To make his parents happy, they informed him the road was difficult, but they wouldn't stop him if he did. John studied psychology at the University of Southern California, but his interest in the theater grew stronger. In high school, John had already displayed the makings of a star. He was selected to serve as the student government president at Hollywood High School. He was gregarious, humorous, and intelligent. Even in college, he maintained his focus on his studies. But the theater bug continued to bite. His innate charisma and timing made him stand out during school plays. He wasn't sure, but his friends and teachers advised him to take it seriously. There was no uprising. It was really unclear. His family wanted him to do something else, so he was unsure of what to do. Then something straightforward and odd occurred that changed everything. In 1966, he appeared on The Dating Game. Having fun was the aim. He was just being himself, it wasn't acting. However, he won the show with his charm and wit. The reward was a trip to Lake Havasu. It was a pointless journey. He needed to feel comfortable on stage. The incident infuriated him. He soon switched to theatrical arts as his major and started attending acting classes. A series of events began with that one appearance on the game show. Without it, he might not have achieved fame. However, prior to his fame, he accomplished something that few people were aware of. John traveled with his stage act in 1968 and 1969. He performed in the Netherlands, Scotland, England, and Germany. He was doing more than that. He worked, studied, and absorbed various performance styles. He appeared in Love Letters, The Glass Menagerie, and As You Like It. It wasn't a fancy one. It was polite. It helped him learn how to adapt, acquire new abilities, and behave with strangers. It made him feel confident in a way that an American TV newbie would never. However, fate delivered him a devastating blow when he was still a novice actor. In 1974, John received a call that completely altered his life. At the time, he was working on the Waltons. His father, 68-year-old Tex Ritter, had passed away unexpectedly the day after New Year's. It was a devastating loss. Tex was more than just a celebrity. He was his leader, mentor, and hero in John's eyes. John was only trying to win his father's acceptance before he left. Even worse, Tex was believed to have died from an aortic rupture. John would pass away from the same disease several years later. The father and son were connected to both achievement and sorrow by a tragic genetic twist. The fact that John nearly missed out on being on the Waltons is amusing. He was chosen to play Reverend Matthew Fordwick in 1972. Originally, the role was intended to be performed just once. The fact that he wasn't in the lead role was altered by his performance. Despite his stiffness, he made them feel authentic, amusing, and warm. People adored him. He was repeatedly asked to return by writers. By the time he left the show in 1976, he had appeared in 18 episodes. His development was aided by the role, but more importantly, it gave him the opportunity to try out other parts. If he had been under contract, he might have missed the opportunity to try out for the program that made all the difference. The show wasn't a motion picture. In actuality, he had a quite unpleasant first cinema experience. In the 1971 Disney film The Barefoot Executive, he played a minor role alongside Kurt Russell. It was an odd narrative. A monkey with the ability to choose popular television programs. John portrayed a TV producer's obnoxious nephew. The part wasn't really interesting, and the movie wasn't very excellent. It didn't hurt his employment, but it didn't help either. He thereafter made frequent cameos on MASH*, K-Jack, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show after making unexpected debuts on those programs. These tasks not only helped him recover, but they also improved his self-esteem. Then came the interview that altered television history. ABC decided to import the British program Man About the House to the US in 1975. It was going to become Three's Company. Over 50 individuals applied to be Jack Tripper. Among them was Bill Crystal as a kid, but John Ritter was unique. You needed to have excellent timing, charm, and physical humor for the role. He had it all. The first film was rejected. The cast was later recast for the show. To secure his position, John had to put in a lot of effort throughout. Even after it had cast, the show was uncertain about its future due to delays. Silverman saw Suzanne Summers while searching through test videos late at night. She was someone he had seen on The Tonight Show. She was on set in 24 hours. It felt like magic when the cameras started rolling. How her recording had been overlooked the first time was unknown. She was successful with her charm and timing. Chrissy Snow joined the triumvirate that would come to characterize the program, and there was a birth. When the show debuted on March 15, 1977, viewers were unsure of their feelings. To live with two unmarried ladies, a straight man pretends to be gay. It was a catastrophe. To avoid getting fired, Jack Tripper had to tell Stanley Roper a falsehood. The monitors also perspired at the idea of three unmarried persons sharing an apartment. For some, it was impolite. It was perceived by some as mocking homosexuality. But the audience couldn't get enough. It began at number 11 in the polls and continued to rise. The show has no intention of being serious. It was slapstick and full of errors. It came under opposition from feminist organizations. Despite the disapproval of conservatives, people continued to watch. Because of the argument, it was larger than anyone had anticipated. Then everything was nearly destroyed by a bomb. In 1980, Suzanne Summers had higher expectations. Her request for $150,000 plus a portion of the earnings was denied by the producers. This was the same arrangement John Ritter had with them for $150,000 each show. The situation rapidly deteriorated. Shoots were missed by Summers. Her husband, Alan Hamill, negotiated as if he were in charge. But ABC didn't flinch. She was let go. The arrangement required her to finish the season anyway. Ditt and Ritter were warned to avoid her. She was the one who filmed her segments. At the conclusion of each presentation, there were brief phone conversations but no jokes or laughter. She arrived with a wardrobe assistant and protection. No one else. Before she and Ditt finally discussed it on a chat show in 2012, it had been more than 30 years. Back then, Three's Company was a huge deal. The show was seen by all. It was selected for broadcast after reaching the top 10 in the ratings. The face of it all was John Ritter. But becoming Jack Tripper came at a price. Ritter was unable to escape him. His playing abilities, his work on the Waltons, and what he had learned in drama class were all irrelevant. The authorities saw Jack, not John. Even as the show grew older, he experimented and portrayed a variety of roles, but the appearance persisted. He remained. No one could view him as anything other than adored. Then, in 1983, his effort was finally recognized by the corporate community. Ritter's performance as the greatest humorous actor earned him a Golden Globe. He took home the Emmy the next year. The victory was enormous. Although many reviews felt the presentation was lackluster, he fared well. He spoke in a courteous manner. He thanked everyone, but he wasn't just stumbling over things. The true victory came when people finally understood. He was unmatched by many at that level. His facial reactions, timing, and body language were all excellent. He becomes one of the greats with these honors. Show stars are not the only people who can lose their careers quickly. ABC attempted to continue with Three's A Crowd in 1984. The show was now hosted by Ritter. When Jack Tripper was older, he had to put up with her inquisitive father while living with his girlfriend above his business. However, there was a problem. There was no match left. No one connected. By pitting it against NBC's biggest show, the A-Team, ABC made matters worse. Additionally, the initial group was pushed aside. Joyce DeWitt was not given access to it. She allegedly interrupted the tryouts for Jack's new romantic interest. It was painful. There was only one guest star, Richard Klein. Ritter requested a guarantee of a full season, but the show received 22 episodes and was picked up for another 13. ABC declined. Ritter's career as a comic star came to an end when the show ended in silence. But he didn't give up. In Stephen Bucko's 1987 production of Hooperman, he portrayed the starring role. This was not like the others. Ritter as Harry Hooperman, a police officer who had to deal with prisoners, his job, and love after taking over a dilapidated property. There were humorous and serious aspects to it. He was correct. He was praised by critics. Although he was nominated for a Golden Globe, an Emmy, and even a People's Choice Award, his ratings declined. It lasted for 2 seasons before ending. Ritter received more attention, but she was still torn between playing significant roles and becoming well-known for her sitcoms. Then, in 1990, Problem Child was released. It was an odd move. Ritter portrayed a decent man who adopts a deranged, nearly malevolent child. It was disliked by the public. It has a dismal score of 0% from Rotten Tomatoes. It was deemed cruel by some. And commercial graphic featuring a cat in a dryer drew criticism from animal rights organizations. The absence of the moment in the film didn't bother anyone. It earned $72. $2 million with just $11 million available for expenditure. Reviewers rolled their eyes, but Ritter returned for the second film. Strangely, it offered him something tangible. Amy Yasbeck, his future wife, was introduced to him. For Ritter, it was a dark period, but for others, the films were a huge hit. Even if his jokes weren't very good, he told them all of them. In 1992, he made another attempt with Hearts of Fire. He portrayed a right-wing political assistant who develops feelings for a left-wing reporter, Markie Post. The concert started in Washington, D.C. It didn't work, despite having a fantastic bunch like Billy Bob Thornton. For season 2, they decided to switch things up by setting the show in a tiny village. It was barely alive, though. After 3 years, it was evident that the enchantment had been extinguished. People stopped watching, and Ritter was unable to regain his sitcom success. Then an odd thing occurred. In 1996, he was cast by Bill Thornton in Sling Blade. Vaughn, a calm, out gay store manager who assists Carl, the main character, was portrayed by Ritter. This was not amusing. The story was silent and rough. The film was filmed in less than a month and cost less than $1 million to produce. It received excellent reviews. Ritter's performance left everyone in awe. There was tension behind the scenes. The fact that Ritter didn't like the haircut they gave him wasn't depicted on film. He had depth, as Ritter shown in Sling Blade. In October 1977, John Ritter married Nancy Morgan. His television program Three's Company became a tremendous smash the same year. It appeared to be something from a fairy tale from the outside. In 1980, 1982, and 1985, respectively, their children were born. At first, everything appeared to be going well, but celebrity is not given away. Their marriage was further disintegrating by the late 1980s. They gradually drifted apart due to the strain of living in Hollywood, having endless routines, and being in the spotlight. By 1993, they were no longer together. The divorce became official at the end of September 1996. However, there were no negative consequences or news reports. Simply two individuals realizing in silence that they were no longer destined to be together. Their children remained close to both parents, and Nancy continued to support John's career. Their breakup remained civil, calm, and typical in a society where well-known splits frequently turn acrimonious. However, as John's first marriage came to an end, an odd new one was beginning. He first got to know Amy Yasbeck on the set of Problem Child in 1990. They immediately connected. During a casual table read at the director's house, John noticed that Amy hadn't eaten and offered her a bagel with cream cheese. From that tiny moment, something greater started. Over the following few months, they joked and worked on films together, and a friendship gradually developed behind the scenes. Amy later claimed that John improved her physical humor skills. They were both huge fans of vintage Hollywood films. Despite the fact that John was still married at the time, he and Nancy were emotionally distant. Despite his 1996 divorce, his connection with Amy remained secret for several years. Nothing was hurried. When they eventually got married in 1999, 9 years after they first met, it wasn't because they were famous. It was genuine, earned, and founded on their shared religion. John's children always played a significant role in his narrative. Each of them had a challenging tale to share. Jason followed in his father's footsteps and became an actor, appearing in Parenthood and Raising Dion. He founded his company on his abilities rather than his family name and received an Emmy nomination. Carly changed her career path and started singing folk music. Her debut album was published in 2013. Tyler first objected to being in the middle. After teaching in Argentina, he returned to perform roles in Arrow and the McCarthys. Stella, who was born in 1998, is now known as Noah Lee Ritter after changing her name. When Noah came out to the world at the age of 18, many were taken aback, but his brother supported him throughout the entire process. The Ritter children have experienced divorce, success, sorrow, and personal transformation. Through it all, they remained united. They all carry John's warmth, humor, and deep affection for family. When John eventually married Amy Yasbeck, it was more than just love. It was related to reconstruction. On September 18, 1999, they were married at Wilmington, Ohio's Murphy Theater. Nearly a century old, the location was rich in charm, history, and significance. A year earlier, on September 11, 1998, their daughter Stella was born. On the 12th, Amy turned 12, on the 17th, John became 17, and on the 11th, Stella turned 11. Their wedding resembled a celebration of life. The occasion wasn't particularly extravagant. It was intimate, amiable, and loving. That old theater wasn't just a place for them, it was a place to be. Amy later remarked, John's jokes and kindness made the whole day feel magical. It represented time, second chances, and all that matters when family endures and fame fades. After many years, the loudest part became the quietest in 2016. Stella Ritter began living as Noah Lee Ritter after coming out as transgender. She had spent years away from the spotlight. She became 18. It wasn't just her father's identity that made the news. almost none anticipated it. However, their family remained unfazed. Amy stood by her kid because she loved him and was proud of him. His brothers jumped at the chance to assist him. According to everyone who knew John, he would still be alive today. He would have definitely given Noah a hug. At the age of 25, Noah has a peaceful existence in Los Angeles. He has no desire for stardom. Living as oneself in Hollywood may be the most difficult thing he has ever done. Only a year before his death, John was back on top. In September 2002, he returned to television with the show 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. Some said he was too old to return. They were mistaken. As Paul Hennessy, the overbearing father attempting to keep up with his wacky teenage children, he was adored by the public. John made it seem simple, and the show was simultaneously humorous and depressing. It had already taken home the People's Choice Award for Best New Comedy in 2003. She did not return as Jack Tripper, but as Ritter. He was different. His warmth penetrated deeper, and his timing was excellent. Every week, families in Europe and America eagerly anticipated the show. It seemed genuine, not merely humorous. When he returned, it wasn't a comeback. I was reminded that certain stars never truly fade. Although everything was going smoothly, a terrible event was taking place. The morning started just like any other on the set of 8 Simple Rules on September 11, 2003. FS, also known as William Shatner, was a guest star on the set. Everyone was content. The show's main character, John Ritter, was as joyful as ever. He made sure that everyone on the set felt his love, joked, and laughed with Winkler. He didn't appear to be a man in peril. He was enthusiastic, engaged, and joyful. However, something was already amiss beneath the surface. Something nobody anticipated. That night, everything changed rapidly. Ritter began to perspire profusely. He became gray-faced. He attempted to ignore it by grabbing his chest. He continued. He was just that. Dedicated, diligent, and unwilling to disappoint others. However, there were symptoms, including nausea, lightheadedness, and chest pain. Someone appeared to be having a heart attack. That is untrue. He developed a tear in the major artery that leaves his heart, known as an aortic dissection. It is uncommon, risky, and frequently misread. That's precisely what happened. Providence St. Joseph Medical Center made a mistake. They believed he was suffering from a heart attack. He was not treated fairly by them. The situation worsened. Approximately 4:41 p.m. Ritter collapsed in his dressing room. Like flames, fear spread. Cast members screamed. It was a mess, according to Kaylee Cuoco, who portrayed his daughter on the show. Many of his acquaintances hurried in. He was barely hanging on, out of it. The emergency personnel acted swiftly. However, nobody realized that time was of the essence and that every second was crucial. They phoned for an ambulance. 54 years ago, in 1948, he was brought to the hospital across the street. What a horrible turn of affairs. On the way to the hospital, he made one final call. He dialed his wife, Amy Yasbeck. "I'm going to the hospital." The final words he spoke to her were, "I love you." After he arrived at the hospital, doctors continued to treat him for a heart attack. A chest X-ray, which would have revealed the true situation, was not performed. When someone has an aortic rip, it is never a good idea to give them blood thinners. Despite Ritter's request for a second opinion, the doctors indicated they were pressed for time. In his ear, he heard Amy repeat it. She advised him to have courage and have faith in them. He was admitted for surgery after responding in the affirmative. It was frightening what the physicians discovered. It was shredded, not simply torn. The damage was so great that it could not be repaired. It was too late to save him, and the initial treatment made matters worse. That night he died. At precisely 10:48 p.m. It was reported that John Ritter was deceased. In 6 days, he would turn 55. An abrupt end to a life full of possibilities. His friends, family, and the entire Hollywood community were taken aback by the news. Amy Yasbeck, a depressed but determined individual, filed a $67 million wrongful death lawsuit. She said that neither the hospital nor two doctors were able to determine Ritter's true condition. Ritter's potential future profits of $350,000 per episode for a 7-year run were the source of the figure. She believed that his life might have been saved by a single test and an accurate diagnosis. The most crucial aspect of the case turned out to be the missing chest X-ray. They had requested it. It was never finished. Before the case even began, the hospital and 8 other physicians agreed to pay $14 million. The Rhode Island St. $9 was donated by Joseph Healthcare Center. For a million of those. Among its sort, it was one of the largest towns. But Amy didn't stop there. She fought for equitable treatment in court. The judicial battle lasted for a month. It was public, it hurt, and it stirred strong emotions in individuals. Ritter's family, friends, and co-workers all testified in court. The judge's decision was rendered in 2008. Both doctors Matthew Lodish and Joseph Lee were acquitted. 3 respondents stated they weren't guilty, while 9 others said they weren't. Even though the doctors were under a lot of stress, most people believed they had done their best. Ritter was already in too poor of shape, they said. Ritter would have perished even if the correct diagnosis had been made, according to one specialist. His illness manifested in a really uncommon manner. Everyone in the courtroom and the crowd was taken aback by the argument, according to the defense. The judges concurred. Amy had yet another breakup. But she didn't give up. Only a few weeks after John's death, Amy started the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health. It had a specific objective: increase awareness in order to save lives. They created the Ritter Rules. To detect an aortic dissection before it's too late, there are simple actions you can do. There is one noteworthy fact. For every hour that care is delayed, the death rate increases by 1%. This work saved the lives of many people. John's brother, Tom Ritter, discovered he had the same issue and promptly had it fixed. The foundation has raised a significant amount of money since then. It has hosted significant occasions and attracted celebrities, physicians, and patients. It transformed one family's grief into a movement of hope. There was more to his passing than a simple loss. It served as a reminder of how fleeting life is and how even highly experienced doctors can overlook the most crucial details. They saved lives in addition to making people laugh.